I used to go diving a lot. Not so much anymore, but a couple of years ago, I was really into it. I had my license and everything. It was really beautiful down there. Pale patterned sand, the water washing away the distance like a blue mist. Flashes of the brightest colors you've ever seen. Some of these fish would just dart into view. My favorite thing to do is to just hover right where the shelf plunges into the deep. You get the greatest dynamics there as deep sea creatures come up to feed. Anyway, one time I was drifting along near Antigua, about 40 feet down. I had 2 tanks with me so I could stay down for several hours. The shelf sloped off to my left, and rocks and coral broke the monotony of the sand to my right. I hadn't seen much that day, and I was getting a bit bored, but then I noticed a large octopus. It was like a deep sea type, probably washed up accidentally. They don't usually come up to hunt. And it seemed sluggish. It didn't react much when I drifted over to it. Now, octopi aren't very friendly creatures. If you could manage to get near one, they usually flee within seconds. I'm sure that you've seen videos of them. They change colors to match their environment. Not all species do that, but they're all very good at hiding. So seeing a deep sea octopus up close, it was quite an opportunity. It was about a foot from crown to beak and dark mottled green. His tentacles curled around it, perhaps 4 feet long, when extended, and pale on the underside. Its eyes looked like golden rings around narrow black pupils. It was having trouble moving and looked half dead. I decided to try to get near it. There were some yellow-tailed jacks nearby, and I speared one with my knife. Sorry if that offends you. I'm not one of those touch-nothing divers, you know. But cautiously, I approached the octopus and offered it my fish, shoving it out ahead of me, letting it drift towards the creature. Success! It didn't run, but lazily reached an arm out to capture the morsel. Brought it under to its beak, and it began to devour it. I drifted closer and tried to acclimate it to my presence. Over maybe a half an hour or so, it became more lively and used to my presence. And apparently, I had bought its tolerance with my offering, and it even began to play a little bit, darting away from me and then back. I had a stick with me that I used to test holes in mud and such, and it occurred to me that maybe I could teach it to play fetch. I brought the stick out, waved it, till it seemed like I had its attention, then I threw the stick out sideways. It didn't go very far, underwater, of course, but the octopus went after it, grabbed it with its tentacles. It didn't seem inclined to return it to me, though. So I swam over, was waving the stick at me, and then tossed it out into the side. It's copying me. I retrieved the stick, and then an interesting idea came into my head. Next to us was a large, flat rock, covered in half an inch of mud and detritus. Careful not to disturb the layers, I took the stick and slowly drew a crude figure of a man. 2 legs, 2 arms, and a round head coming off a central cylinder. The octopus seemed to be watching with interest. I tossed it the stick, and it caught it easily. It sat there toying with it, and for a few moments I thought my expectations had been too high, but then it reached out with a stick and began tracing its own mark on the mud. It was even cruder than mine, to be sure, but very clearly a drawing. However, the proportions were all wrong. It had fused the head and the body into one ball, and there were too many legs. I was just happy it was copying me. I'd heard octopi were smart, but this was really something. But then it hit me like a freezing wave. The octopus wasn't drawing my drawing, it was drawing itself. The implications for this were huge. If I had a video camera, I would have been a famous man. The only other animal I'm aware of that's capable of the imagination and self-awareness to do something like this was like the ape, first cousin to humans. That the ancient octopus, without so much as a spinal column, had the mental capacity for such a feat would surely have turned biology on its head. However, I didn't have a camera, and the scientists I've told my story to greet it with understandable skepticism. I put all my time into trying to prove it myself, but I just can't bring myself to go diving anymore. Anyway, once that realization struck, I got excited. The octopus passed the stick back, and I began drawing the other sea creatures and common sights. We kept on for maybe an hour. The octopus contributed as much as I. He even drew something I took to be a crude figure of a submarine, with a con tower, propeller screw, and even torpedo holes. Finally, the octopus led me to the other side of the rock, blank canvas. Far down in the corner, it again drew itself, and then me. These figures were very small, maybe an inch or two tall. Then, painstakingly, it went to work on a much larger drawing. At first I thought it was a whale, but whales are roughly the size of a submarine, so it didn't seem to justify the scale. Furthermore, the proportions were all wrong. This seemed like something humped and compact, almost as if it was upright rather than aquiline. It had weird bits sticking out. It didn't seem like fins. Couldn't place it. An oil platform, maybe? The lines were too natural. An octopus wouldn't know what the top of a platform looks like. When the drawing was done, we both sat and looked at it for a while. I took the stick back from the octopus, it circled the drawing of us, and then drew a line to the thing. I'm not sure if the octopus picked up on my confusion, because it just sort of sat there for a while. I didn't try to take the stick back. Then it started swimming away. I followed it at a distance. It seemed to be keeping a pace, leading me on. Then it turned and it shot out into the deep area of the shelf. I was a good way through my second tank and wasn't supposed to go any deeper, so I had to let it go. It stopped once to watch me, and then darted off, dissolving into the dark blue depths. I looked after it for a minute to see if it would return, but it was nothing, so I started watching the other fish and making my way back to the boat. And then suddenly, there was a low thrumming sound all around me. It wasn't very loud, but it was big, as if it came from the ocean floor itself. I've heard of underwater eruptions, but I've never been in one, and I wondered if I was about to be. But this didn't sound like anything natural. It sounded like the call of some animal, slowed down into the virtually subsonic range and projected from huge speakers very far away. I've had a chance to look over the seismograph recordings of that day, and nothing showed up at that time for that frequency. I have no idea why. The fish were going crazy, darting back and forth and all heading inland. And not just the reef fish. Larger ones from deeper in were streaming by me and faster. Suddenly among them, the octopus appeared again. That, or one quite like it. It swam up to me and eyed me strangely, then darted past with the rest. The thrumming sounded again. Looking out to sea, I gradually became aware of a large, dark patch. It was very hard to tell how big or far away it was, but there was plenty of both to go around. It was hard to tell more than just a shadow in the murky water, but it clearly wasn't a whale or anything man-made. I couldn't even tell if it was a single creature. It seemed to be long strands like kelp or jellyfish tentacles streaming off of it, but immeasurably larger. It looked like nothing so much as an ancient, misshapen section of coral reef broke off and floating, at least the part I could see. It seemed to fade off into the distance as though that mass, immense as it may be, was only a limb to some far larger entity. I've never seen a naval carrier from underwater, but I imagine that's the kind of shadow it would cast. thrumming rang out a third time, and unreasonable fear seized me. I didn't appear to be in danger, though the thing was vaster than anything I'd ever seen. It was too far away to reach me quickly, and it seemed like it wouldn't fit into the shallows anyway. Nevertheless, I was gripped by the feeling that if I didn't get away as fast as I could, I'd be dragged down into the abyss and consumed. I could feel the very water itself drawing down into the black maw. Heedless of the depths of my equipment, I surged upwards. As I rose, of course, I began cramping, but I clawed my way up anyway. I was still far from the boat. When I broke the surface, I could barely move. I had to keep my mouthpiece in because I couldn't keep my mouth above water. I certainly couldn't call or signal the boat. Far from receding, my panic was worse than ever from above the water. I couldn't see the thing or tell whether it was coming for me. I thrashed my slow, painful way towards the boat. Finally, someone on board noticed me, and they came to pick me up. I had the bends bad. I had to stay in a hospital for a few weeks until it was over. The doctors told me I was lucky not to get a stroke or some other permanent damage. So that's my story. Sorry, I can't give a more satisfying conclusion. I still don't know myself what I experienced. My friends think that it was some form of rapture, but it just doesn't match the symptoms. Narcosis is supposed to reduce anxiety, not stimulate it. And my hallucinations, if that's what they were too vivid and specific. Anyway, since then I've always been afraid of the water. I tried going out once or twice, but all I can do is stay shaking in the boat. I think there really was something out there. And I don't think it's something I ever want to come across again. Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and I just wanted to tell you thank you so much for watching tonight's video, or by listening to tonight's episode of the podcast. I know I haven't had as many updates as I would like to have on the channel lately, and things just kind of get really hard with shit that's happening in my family. But hey, I wanted to say thank you so much for being around, thank you so much for still supporting me and for coming back to listen to new stories. If you guys want to get updates anytime that I do upload, then please go ahead and hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Or if you're listening over a podcast, I think it's still a subscribe button or a follow button or whatever happen. Those happen to be. As always, I want to give a very big thank you to everybody out there on patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta. A very, very big thank you to everybody there, and to especially Jordan Humble, Diana Kraus, King Crab, Calcifer420, Veronica Lynn Lopez, Marlon Chavez, Azazel66603, Ethan Leon, Polaris Prospect X, Blake Rattler, Viceroy Scorn, Samara Lynn, Disciple, SullyMan, Brandon Mendoza, BrimstonePandemonium, Caltuna, William Wellington, Scruffy the Janitor, Brenna LaQueda, Canizales, Smiley the Psychotic, Dante Kinkade, SimbasBloodyMojo, CursepoxPrimarch, Janitor's Pet, Clonable, Kearns, Mike, himbojerry, CrusaderChocobo, Remember the Sun, Estebean, Hour Minute Second Time, Seclude, Salty Surprise, Red Shadowcat, Turtleman, Mr. Marcus Blitz, Voice of Sand, Ficomel, Melted Lake, Tully Sue, Croconut 509, Stricken, Freddy Krueger, Hades Nephew, Tommy Walters, Acid System, Sky Harbor, Nico Kyle, Tristan Pelton, Ball Arms the Rat, the Ginger Bros, Daniel Polson, and Cody Kinchin. To all of you guys there, everybody who's down in the description, and everybody who can just give $1, I want to say thank you to you guys. And if you would like to join this list in the description, head over to patreon.com/MrCreepy. And if you would like to join this list in the description, sweet dreams.